This week on Christian World News, never again. 75 years after the Jews were liberated from Nazi concentration camps, world leaders gather in Jerusalem to stand against anti-Semitism.
Plus, a Nigerian pastor kidnapped and killed by Boko Haram. Why is this terrorist group on the rampage against Christians? And see how some escaped their wrath.
And the fighter. He grew up in a war zone and learned how just to survive, but to serve others. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Christian World News. I'm George Thomas.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. Well, 75 years after the Holocaust, anti-Semitism is alive and well, even in the U.S. Congress. That's what Vice President Mike Pence told CBN News in an exclusive interview. The Vice President went to Jerusalem for the World Holocaust Forum. He also talked about why Bible-believing Christians strongly support Israel and the Jewish people. CBN's David Brody spoke with him in the Old City.
The Holocaust may be in the past, but the hatred towards the Jewish people and the rise of anti-Semitism is very much in the present. And that was part of the conversation that I had with the Vice President Mike Pence near the Western Wall.
Well, there is a rising tide of vile anti-Semitism that's emerging all around the world. We've seen it result in violence at synagogues in Pittsburgh and in Los Angeles, and the loss of life. But we've also seen it manifested in rhetoric, not only the BDS movement attempting to get people to divest from Israel, thinly veiled anti-Semitism, but even in the halls of Congress. We've heard anti-Semitic rhetoric that has not been roundly and universally condemned as it should be.
Referring to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, people like that who have said.
Well, for people to traffic in anti-Semitic slurs and tropes and not be held to account for that is just unacceptable.
Traveling to Israel is not just political for Pence. As a Bible-believing Christian, it's deeply spiritual, too. Can you educate folks as to why evangelical Christians have a love for Israel, have a love for the Jewish people?
For Christian believers, we're grounded in the conviction that we're called to bless Israel. The Bible tells us that those who bless her will be blessed and those who curse her will be cursed. And really, since before the American founding, Americans called for the restoration of Israel to the promised land. And when Israel was restored in 1948, America was the first nation on earth to recognize the Jewish state of Israel. And we've been with them every step of the way because it's a heart connection.
David Brody, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thank you, David. By the way, you can see more of David's interview with the Vice President on our Faith Nation program. Find it at our website, cbnnews.com.
In Nigeria, a Christian pastor has been executed by the radical Islamic group Boko Haram. Pastor Lawan Adimi, a senior member of the Christian Association of Nigeria, was beheaded by Boko Haram fighters. He was captured on January 2nd and had released a video urging his family not to feel sorry for him since God's will must be respected.
Millions of Nigerian Christians have been forced to flee their homes by the ISIS-inspired terrorist group Boko Haram, but they're not giving up the faith or their dreams for the future.
CBN contributor Chuck Holton visited a refugee camp near Abuja to find Christians who are holding on to hope and prayer despite the desperate conditions.
It's Sunday morning in Nigeria, and Christians across the country are heading to church. As part of the continent's largest Christian community, most believers here have their choice of places to worship. Here at the Family Worship Center, pastored by a graduate of Regent University, thousands lift their hands in praise. But just a few miles away on this Sunday, these people tried to find enough food to survive another day. I'm just outside of Abuja in the capital of Nigeria, and this is a refugee camp with about 1,500 people in it that have been internally displaced from their villages further north and to the west. There are about 2.5 million internally displaced people within Nigeria, and that makes this one of the largest humanitarian crises in the world right now. And the thing that all of these people have in common is that they're Christians. 29-year-old Aisha grew up in northern Kenya with her family, scratching out a meager living along with the rest of those in her small village. She's a Christian from one of the largest ethnic groups in West Africa. Life was hard for this young mother, and it was about to get a whole lot harder.
In November 2013, Boko Haram invaded our village. They killed my father-in-law and abducted some of the children who lived with us. We were so scared, so we fled to the mountains.
As a movement, Boko Haram has been around for a very long time, starting back in 2002, long before ISIS even became a thing. And as time went on, they got more and more extreme to the point where in 2011, they detonated a car bomb at this building behind me. That's the UN embassy here in Abuja. They've continued to kill people across the country of Nigeria, thousands in fact, to the point where in 2015, they were dubbed the most dangerous terror group on the planet. Much of that terror directed at Christians. Enoch Yohana was one of Aisha's neighbors.
They started with burning of the churches, killing the pastors, and killing the members, closing them down. On 29 September 2014 was the day that they attacked my village. Around 10, I have a call that they have killed my dad. They asked him to deny Christ, in which he refused. They have cut his right hands. Then he refused. They have cut to the elbow again, in which he refused before they shot him thrice at the head, forehead, the neck, and chest.
Many of the 1,500 Christians living in this camp have similar stories, like Hanatu, who had to flee on foot across the border into Cameroon, carrying her 3-year-old daughter on her back.
We escaped from Boko Haram. I walked for 2 months before I reached Nigeria.
Once she arrived, she realized the camp had no school for the children, so she decided to do something about it.
The thing has touched my mind that these children, they are living like that without going to school. We sit down, we discuss and say, how are we going to do with this life of these children? Are we going to leave them like this? This Boko Haram is because of illiteracy that they start killing everybody. So if we didn't teach these children, they will affect us directly or indirectly. Now, I thank God, the children now, we have seen a great change.
Hanatu and other volunteers go beyond reading and arithmetic, also teaching the children about their heritage, since many of these little ones have never seen their true homes.
We always cry, there is a song that our children always sing, oh my home, because there is no place like home.
It's been raining all night long, and you know, the polyethylene on the tops of these shacks here gets leaky very quickly.
One of the hardest things about living here is the leaky roofs during the rainy season, because water constantly drips onto our bed. We depend on people to feed us, so when they are unable to give us food, we go hungry.
The Nigerian military has mounted large offensives against Boko Haram in recent months, and even with heavy losses on both sides, there seems to be no end in sight. Despite the hardships, these displaced Christians are firm believers in the power of prayer.
My faith has helped my prayer life, and I believe the prayers of the other saints around the world have helped us to get through this hard time. My desire is for God to restore all those who have been displaced and allow us to go back to our homes so that we can worship God together and live in peace.
In Nigeria's capital city, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Up next, growing up in a war zone taught him how to fight and to use his skills to help others survive.
He founded one of the world's largest television ministries.
Welcome, folks, to the 700 Club.
Formed a global relief organization demonstrating God's love in action.
Thank you for helping us.
Established a leading university.
Graduates, flip your tassels!
And became a New York Times best-selling author. Now, Pat Robertson wants to share with you significant insights learned from a lifetime in the Word of God. In his latest book, 10 Laws for Success, Keys to Win in Work, Family, and Finance. you'll discover the laws that govern success and how they can work for you. A real-world guidebook that can revolutionize your life. Call now, 1-800-700-7000, or go to CBN.com to receive Pat Robertson's latest book, 10 Laws for Success.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30. As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
It's what starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
One country, two wars. The 1967 Arab-Israeli War and Jordan's 1970 crackdown on the PLO led to much unrest in the Middle East.
For one young reporter, it was a daily fight to stay alive. Take a look.
Born into war, Abdallah Daher learned at an early age what it means to survive in a country ravaged by chaos, uncertainty, and death. In 1970, Lebanon was the battleground in a war between Israel and Palestinians. The Palestinian Liberation Organization launched bombs and missiles and rained gunfire from Lebanon on Israel daily. And while Israelis defended their country, a civil war was stirred between Lebanese Christians and Muslims. Young Abdallah found himself in the middle of these two wars. As a reporter, he has experienced firsthand death and deep loss. But in 2000, Abdallah and his family finally found asylum from the war in the United States. Today, the award-winning reporter, producer, and director is sharing his story. In his new book, Fight, Abdallah paints a picture of the harsh realities of war and how finding Christ in the midst gave him hope and peace.
The bomb went off right next to me, killing and injuring all of those who were standing in front of it. The soldier who confronted me pushed me far enough to get me out of the shrapnel radius. I was the only one to walk away without a scratch.
I must point out Abdallah Daher joins us now, and I should say that he is an integral part of Christian World News. He's directed, he's edited, he's helped produce a show for more than 2 decades, and now he joins us to tell us his story. Great to have you on this side of the studio. You talk about growing up in the war zone, and how did it shape you as a young man?
Living in a war zone is the worst life that a human being can live. It's tragic. It gives you the worst things in life. Like you don't see any hope. Living in a war zone, it affects you psychologically. It makes you turn into a different human being. You become heartless, you become emotionless, and sometimes I contemplated like killing myself because I became a person that I didn't know myself. I lost my identity as a human being, and that was, of course, before I met Christ and became a Christian. But the war was really affected me tremendously, and it was tough for me and my siblings as well, and my parents.
Well, I've read your book. It's absolutely amazing and frightening. But how did God help you through this and your family? Because you were one of many siblings, right?
Yeah. My walk with the Lord after I became a Christian, it changed my life, because before my walk with the Lord, I pushed the envelope. I tried to do the most extreme things that I can do to just see how far I can push my luck, because life didn't mean anything to me. You reach a point where you're desperate.
Because you're surrounded by death.
Yes, you're surrounded by death. It's so tragic, and you can't see light at the end of the tunnel. You're just hopeless.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, since it's going to be, because I don't know when I'm going to die, if it's going to be today, tomorrow. So every day goes by, you know that this is a win.
Wow.
So that's why I took things to the extreme, and I wanted to just see how far I can push it. And that's why some of the video that you saw in the setup package was so extreme, because I was in the middle of everything. And when the Lord protected me many years, many years, protected me over and over and over. And I didn't know it, I didn't see it. I just felt like it's because I'm courageous. I can jump into the middle of the battlefield and be there. That's what's making me survive. But then when I accepted the Lord and became a Christian, I knew that the Lord was protecting me and was watching over me this whole time.
Tell us how you came to America.
Because of the war and everything that we went through in Lebanon, I had enough, and I decided to leave the country, because I didn't want for my children to live the same life I lived, because that was not a life for people to live, and I don't want for them to have the insecurities, the instability, all the things that I had to face. I don't want for them to face. I wanted a better future for them. I wanted a better life for them. So that's why I decided to leave the country and go into a refugee camp. And from there, I came to the U.S., and I've been living here ever since.
One of the things I remember so vividly about your book is that your family, whenever there was bombs falling all around you, your entire family would run into this bunker that you had about, what, 100 yards from the house or so? Or?
Yes, yes.
And you'd have to stay there for days at a time. Why did you decide to write about all those memories in fight?
There was like multiple reasons why I decided to write about it, because first I just felt like people should know about other people's lives. And the one main thing was my children. I wanted for my children to learn and understand that they shouldn't take anything for granted.
Right.
Because we become complacent, we become ungrateful for the things we have. And I wanted for everybody to know that they should be thankful for the things that they have in life, and they should be grateful to God that they are blessed big time.
Yeah. Okay, the book is called Fight, Confronting Evil, Escaping Darkness. In the midst of other tragedy, it is also a story of hope, hope that you can find in Jesus Christ. My good friend, congratulations on the book, and great to have you on the show. Well, folks, coming up, taking flight, how this man's vision for serving missionaries is about to get off the ground.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, you know, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Improve personal finances, maintain a lasting marriage, and achieve success in all you do. With Pat Robertson's dynamic new book, 10 Laws for Success, Keys to Win in Work, Family, and Finance. These supernatural laws of the universe will help you to overcome life's challenges and to accomplish your goals. Transform yourself and revolutionize your life now with Pat Robertson's 10 Laws for Success. Call now or visit CBN.com.
The world's first Christian airline is preparing to take off.
That's exciting. CBN's Caitlin Burke reports it serves missionaries through the air so that they can serve on the ground.
Battery switch on. Standby pump on. APU door open.
At the North Texas Regional Airport is an aviation ministry dedicated to fulfilling the Great Commission.
We give wings to missionaries. The Great Commission tells us we go to all the world and preach the gospel to every creature.
Judah One has a hangar full of small planes and plans for a commercial fleet able to transport missionaries and their cargo around the world.
We're able to get out in the mission field to take smaller teams, 12-member teams, 10-member teams such as that, taking them in the mission field. But in the future, once we get our certification, the 125 certification for the large plane, then we can carry the larger teams of up to 136 with our MD-83 and 17,000 pounds of cargo. And of course, we can go anywhere with those.
When Hurricane Dorian hit the Bahamas, Judah One made it possible for CBN's Operation Blessing to reach and help storm victims.
In the case of a natural disaster like happened with Dorian, we need to be in there quickly. That was Operation Blessing. They contacted us initially saying, look, how can you help us to get our teams in quickly? And that's where the small jets really come in handy. A lot of times the major airports are not open where they can handle the larger planes coming in.
They not only transported Operation Blessing staff to the hard-hit islands, but also moved pallets full of supplies, including water purification systems, chlorine, disaster recovery supplies, and medical aid.
What do you feel in your legs, right? Blood pressure?
Yes.
Judah One started operations in 1994 after founder Everett Aaron says God spoke a calling over his life.
I see hundreds of these airplanes lined up as far as you can see. They're full of food, medical supplies, Bibles. The engines are running on them. I can see the crew in the cockpit. I can see the flight attendants inside the plane. I mean, these planes are ready to go. And I get super excited because, I knew in my spirit these planes are missionary aircraft, and they're taking supplies into the mission field.
He saw missionary teams lined up outside the planes, but no one would board. Aaron says he could feel a grieving of the Holy Spirit, so he asked God why no one was moving.
And the Lord spoke, and he said, none of these people, and when he said none of these people, it wasn't just the missionaries. I saw the pilots on the planes, the flight attendants, the mechanics that maintain the planes, everybody that's associated with doing this stuff. He said, none of these people can do what they're called to do until you get the airplanes. This is my call in your life.
Aaron hopes that 2020 will be the year Judah One goes from a private nonprofit organization to the world's first Christian airline.
Becoming the world's first Christian airline is opening doors for us to be able to go anywhere in the world and do anything. But it also is opening doors for us because part of our heart is not just, in being an airline, is not just transporting the missionaries, but by getting into that world of becoming an airline, we want to open our own flight school. We want to be able to train missionary pilots. It opens doors for us to do so many things.
The Judah One motto is your hands, God's love, our wings. So when you're ready to answer the call to go, they're ready to take you. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Denison, Texas.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. And stay with us. We'll be right back with more Christian World News.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
Escalating fight.
Jenna Browder.
Chose his words carefully.
Ben Kennedy.
Plan to join him.
And Amber Strong.
For impeachment grows a little bit louder.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We get out and tell the story of the progress that we're making in this country.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6 on the CBN News Channel. On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30. He founded one of the world's largest television ministries, established a leading university, and became a New York Times best-selling author. Now, Pat Robertson wants to share with you significant insights learned from a lifetime in the Word of God. In his latest book, 10 Laws for Success, Keys to Win in Work, Family, and Finance. Call now or go to CBN.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Well, in the Philippines, the Taal volcano has forced tens of thousands of people into evacuation centers. That's where Operation Blessing is at work, addressing not only physical needs, but spiritual ones as well.
As Asia correspondent Lucille Talusan reports, whole families are being led to Christ.
Remedios Akdalan is so sad to see her whole family enduring the discomforts of staying in an evacuation center. She devoted her life taking care of all her nephews and nieces, and now it pains her that even their children are suffering because of the Taal volcano eruption. They are 16 members cramped in one classroom.
We were frightened because the tremors were strong and frequent. We slept outside our houses, and that's why we decided to evacuate.
A member of their family showed CBN News cracks on the walls of their house that was caused by the volcanic tremors. Their family compound is situated in the town of Calaca, where ground fissures emerged after the eruption, damaging houses. The day after this visit, authorities declared a total lockdown on their town.
I pray to God for mercies, for the eruption to stop, and that other people will not experience what we are going through. I pity the children.
The son of her niece has been down with fever.
My son has fever for 3 days now. It pains me to see my family living under very uncomfortable conditions. The children get sick. Our parents are old and are also sick. What's worse is we don't know how long all this will last. The future is full of uncertainties.
But on that day, JV and the rest of the families experienced hope when Operation Blessing came to the school to give medical assistance.
They say that it is the first time that a medical mission has been conducted here, and according to the doctors, most of the children, especially age 13 and below, are diagnosed with pneumonia, and that is because of the ash that is still present in the air that they breathe.
JV is thankful her son was seen by a doctor along with the rest of their family. They also received free medicines and relief goods. An Operation Blessing pastor also took time to share the good news of salvation to Remedios and her relatives. And as a family, they surrendered their lives to Jesus on that day.
Thank you very much, Operation Blessing. You have given us so much help. Thank you so much.
Lucille Talusan, CBN News, Batangas, Philippines.
Well, folks, that is it for this week's edition of Christian World News.
Until next week, goodbye and God bless you.